Welcome, friends. Welcome to another edition of Emerging Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Dr. David Kamnitzer, and here on Emerging Breakthroughs, we do in-depth interviews with individuals that are doing work on the cutting edge in the areas of healing, spirituality, and social transformation. I'm very excited about today's show, and my special guest today is Sheldan Nidle. Sheldan, are you on the line?
I am here.
Welcome, Sheldan.
I'm glad to be able to talk with you this afternoon, David, and hopefully we'll have a wonderful hour.
Great. Sheldan and I go way back. I knew Sheldan back in the early 1990s when he was living in Half Moon Bay, California, before he had written any books or had become very well known, and I've always been very impressed with Sheldan's integrity and his commitment to his path and his journey. And I thought I would begin by just telling you a little bit about Sheldan's background. I'm going to read a little bit from his biographical sketch, and then I'll turn it over to Sheldan and give him a chance to flesh that out a little bit and to see where he'd like to begin to take the interview. So Sheldan Nidle was born in New York City on November 11th, 1946, and raised in Buffalo, New York. His first extraterrestrial and spacecraft experiences began shortly after his birth and were highlighted all through his childhood by various modes of contact phenomena as well as accompanying manifestations, light-form communications, extraterrestrial visitations, and teaching and learning sessions on board spacecraft. During most of his life, he has enjoyed ongoing telepathic communications with the Galactic Federation of Light via etheric and physical implants. Sheldan has visually observed and physically experienced spacecraft throughout the years. What makes his information unique is that it is transmitted to him directly, without channeling. It's scientific when necessary and encoded with a spiritual language. Around the age of 14, Sheldan requested that the Syrians and their Galactic Federation of Light allies discontinue communications with him because he was experiencing overwhelming conflict between their scientific and societal knowledge and that which he was learning here on Earth. They left, but the Syrians and their Galactic Federation of Light allies told him that they would be back when it was time to complete his mission for planet Earth and her people. In high school, Sheldan was placed in advanced science programs in subject areas such as physics, chemistry, and calculus. Due to Sheldan's education in science, the social sciences, as well as extensive research in Nikola Tesla's alternative energy technologies, etc., he's able to bring a rational and scientific approach to this controversial subject. So, I'm going to come up for air and take a deep breath and turn it over to you, Sheldan, and see if you'd like to augment that biography with anything, and particularly maybe with what you've been focused on lately. And then why don't you let me know where you'd like to start to take the conversation, and we'll be on our way.
Okay. I think the most important thing since I began was understanding the fact that this is not really channeled material. So a lot of people usually try to put me in that category, and I'm not. And one of the things that I would really like to emphasize with people is that this information is about an entirely positive future for us that is right now underway. And even though a lot of it is not seen in the media in terms of direct things happening or events, it is pretty much, as far as I can tell from sources both inside what is happening and from my contacts up above, that we are in the midst of probably what should prove to be very shortly one of the most momentous series of events in the history of this entire nation and of the planet. So I consider this time to be one of where the conscious raising aspects that have been going on in various ways for this entire planet over really mostly the change has really been in the last few years. And so what I'd like to start talking about is this change and what does it really imply as far as what's happening here on planet Earth, and how does it work that we suddenly are so close to a first contact? so that people have a better idea of how that all fits into the spiritual aspects and the consciousness aspects that I think, from all that I've been told, are pretty much intertwined and are leading us toward a vast change in our reality, and not only that, a vast change in how we look at who and what we are and how we relate to other people, because right now on our planet we are basically told by the mainstream that if there are people from out there, they probably wouldn't be around, and they basically will downgrade any potentialities when people try to explain beyond any kind of belief that this is indeed real and that there are pictures and evidence, etc., of extraterrestrials all over the planet, and there have been for lots of decades. And so one of the things I think we have to start off with is looking at what is happening to us. And one of the things that all of us are noticing is that we go through periods where we feel fatigued, we go through periods where we have various aches and pains that seemingly do not have a physical problem or a diagnostic malay of some sort that proves that something is going wrong with us, and that therefore what we are having is not just psychological but is real. And that's one of the things that people have discovered, because a lot of the evidence that proves that has been greatly suppressed. And this is one of the things I've been talking about to a lot of people, is to have people understand greatly that we have two things going on in this world: the might call mainstream reality and what I like to call the real reality of what's happening to us and where we're going. And we have to look at what's happening on this planet as simply being something that is a movement forward. And even though it may seem very negative right now in terms of our future, with all the things that you will read about or see on television or experience in, say, a browsing of the Internet, the result of what is really happening out there is really, really positive. And that's one of the most important things I think that people can realize is, one, that we are in the midst of a great consciousness shift that is affecting us physically, as I just said. It's also affecting us emotionally and mentally, and that we are becoming more aware of spirit. Over the past few decades, and especially I would say the last half-decade, there's been a great revolution on this planet about spirit. People are moving beyond the set religious concepts and into a concept of who are we, where we really come from, and what really is the spiritual basis of who and what we are. And this search has led people down paths to discovery, to understanding better who they are, what they're about, and where they're going. And that this is really a great search because it ultimately leads down the path toward understanding that we are not alone in the universe and on planet Earth, that we have people around us, both the physical and the spiritual, who are part of a great movement, which we're just talking about, which is this great shift. And what is this shift signifying? Where are we going? From all that I've been told and all that they continue to tell me, we are heading toward being fully conscious beings. And as being fully conscious beings simply means that we are totally integrated physically, mentally, emotionally, and, of course, spiritually. And that this new being, which I like to call a physical angel, is part of a vast process to prepare us for our next adventure in our reality, which is moving out of being planetary beings and into being galactic beings, something that in my original first book I simply called Galactic Humans.
What is our role? What is the role of free will of human individuals in this process?
Well, what has happened is we have set up contracts, and what happens for the most part, we have pretty well looked at our life from beginning to the end, wherever that is, and have made decisions which we want to enforce as part of how we learn and understand what this life is about and what are the lessons we will take from it. And so there is a period of free will in that there are certain channels where we can go in certain directions, but what we've done is create a basic pattern that allows us to just live out what we want. And what we think of as free will is actually us deciding, which something we had decided beforehand in our pre-life contracts for this life, on what we're going to do, what we're going to say, how we're going to enact it, what we're going to do with it. And a lot of times, because we have this amnesia at birth, we don't realize that. And so I think there's one of the biggest spiritual conflicts we have right now is understanding the difference between true free will and actually the decisions in our life contracts which we've forgotten about. It's almost as like you've walked out of an office after signing a contract and reading it thoroughly, and when something happens, it makes you